Word Balloon, celebrating 16 years of excellence for you. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's time again for another edition of Word Balloon Live, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. I'm happy they're back. It's the evolutionary brains behind Monkeybrain Comics.
Good to see you, John.
Good to see you, Allison Baker. Good to see you, Chris Roberson.
Hello.
Chris, as you know, was the stunt double for Josh Duhamel in Jupiter's Legacy.
Let's just talk about the hair a minute, because I just think it's very fun.
Dude, you look great. You just need a fan blowing it in the wind and stuff.
Exactly.
It's very heroic, like, and just strike a pose, and you're ready for your cover shot, Mr. Duhamel. Absolutely.
Yeah. This is what happens when I stay away from a barber for a year and a half.
It's good. Do you ponytail as well as flowing?
Yeah, it depends. Like, particularly, like, I don't know if you know this, but it got pretty hot here this past weekend. So yeah, having all this mess on my neck was not something I wanted to, to endure for long.
I understand. Have things calmed down Portland-wise? Are they still occupying a portion of downtown Portland or anything?
Oh, that mess?
Yeah.
I mean, there's, it has evolved over time. So,
okay.
Man, I don't want to get too deep into it. There's a small core of like suburban anarchists who are still making trouble. But by and large, things are pretty back to normal. And even friends of mine who live downtown often don't know that anything is happening just blocks away from their places. So it's nothing like it was last summer.
No, I get it. And that's the thing. Last time we talked was back in May. And Allison, you were up in Calgary, working on Wynonna, or when?
No, I mean, in May, we weren't sure when we were going back. What ended up happening was that they started prepping again in June, and then built an entire protocol Bible for dealing with COVID, and then we started back up in July. So I made it my way across the border, which was really it made me very anxious, because I had read like all of the background on like if I could get through and that kind of stuff, and there wasn't anything definitive, and so I just had to try, and they let me through. So I got to finish doing all of the companions for the last 6 episodes of Wynonna, which wrapped up earlier this year. So Yeah.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Hey, great run. 4 seasons? 5 seasons?
4 seasons. 4 seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and especially in this day and age where the focus is more on streaming, either than cable or, over the air channels and stuff. No, it's interesting. And I'm sure you learned a lot being part of the crew and everything.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, they're just so wonderful. I mean, it was really interesting, like, doing the show with COVID protocols. I mean, we were one of the first shows to come back. So we kind of were the guinea pigs a little bit, but we made it through without any cases. And everybody was fine. Everybody was safe, which is a testament to the crew and everybody and the producers and the protocols that we went through and whatnot. I mean, it was, we were all very careful, because nobody wanted to be the person that got it and brought it to set. That was the thing. But yeah. So excellent. I got to see Calgary in the summer, which is beautiful. Like I've always been there in the cold dead of winter where it's like minus 20. And I was like, oh my God, like it's like really nice and beautiful and the sun's up forever and comes up early. And anyway, I was just glad to be able to also finish kind of what I started, from season 1. And so if anybody's curious, they can go to iTunes and all 4 seasons are there with all the extra material. And I'm really proud of the work great. I'm really proud of that work. And I'm really proud of, especially the work that I did this year. Actually won 4 Telly Awards, which is bizarre and crazy for one of my pieces. So yeah.
Are those Canadian or are they just tech awards? What are the Tellys?
No, the Telly Awards it's an international award. It's about content that's related to television, because there's all kinds of extra content that's created.
Sure.
And so I won 3 silvers and a bronze.
Wow.
For different categories for the one piece that I submitted. So
outstanding. That's fantastic. Yeah. No, and I'm glad they are still doing supplemental material, because will there be physical DVDs for the series?
Well, there have been. I've produced Blu-rays for the first 3 seasons.
Sure.
So I'm not sure what's going on with 4 yet, but I mean, we've run Kickstarter campaigns, and it's one of my jobs was to master the Blu-rays and whatnot and get those manufactured via Technicolor. So,
huge.
So yeah.
That's awesome. Again, and the reason why I ask is, sure, the last 3 seasons, it just seems like physical media is disappearing.
Yeah.
And it's great that your material can be seen on iTunes. Had no idea.
Yeah, iTunes, Google Play, and Vudu, and it just depends on where you are. So
okay. All right.
Yeah, you can get it. It's like you get the season and the extra material for like $20. It's a bargain.
I'm with you. Oh, absolutely. All right, I'm going to rotate the camera because, Chris, I'm going to show the cover for your current comic, and poor Allison's going to be blotted by it, but boom, there we go.
God damn it, John.
I know. Peek around the corner, buddy. There you go. The House of Lost Horizons. There she is. A Sarah Jewell mystery. Dude, this is great. It's from Dark Horse, everybody. You can see it. But I am a sucker for drawing room mysteries. And I love the period, and it's an American story, but it's in that Lord Peter Wimsey kind of period of that stuff. Obviously, you're a fan of this genre as well.
Very much so. I mean, it's been my go-to for years. I went through the genesis of this was I was on a serious Agatha Christie kick a couple of years ago. And I had worked my way through, man, if there was a period cozy mystery show featuring an eccentric, amateur sleuth, I was there for it. I watched it.
Sure.
And then, I would just man, I would love to do a story like that. And I was watching things like Miss Fisher Murder Mysteries and Frankie Drake Mysteries and stuff like that while reading all the Miss Marple stuff. And we already had this character that Mike and I had come up with for some of the other Hellboy stories. And I was like, we could just use her. We could just do this in the Hellboy world. And then get paid for it. Because if I was to do this on my own with another character not connected to Hellboy, that's a tough sell. Like middle-aged lady solving supernatural mysteries in the 20s is a tough sell. But if you from the world of Hellboy, suddenly people are showing up.
Right, there's an audience. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why that happened, and I got to do this thing. It's great.
That's the great adaptability of Hellboy, that it does play in so many different genres. And I mean, I'm a massive Lobster Johnson fan, Abe Sapien. Yeah, I mean, I love all that stuff. So, and I'll admit my own ignorance, I don't know Sarah's connection to the Hellboy universe. So if you don't mind giving the background.
How dare you? How dare you, sir? She's only appeared a couple of times. She grew out of a conversation that Mike and I had, God, about like 6 years ago, right around the time I was first working on the books. And so Mike had this image in his head of Sir Edward Grey, the Victorian occult detective who works for Queen Victoria and is the hero of the Witchfinder stories.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So he had this idea of a riff on that scene from Jaws where everyone's comparing their scars around the table, right? Where Sir Edward Grey and a bunch of other like ghost hunter Karnaki types are one-upped by a young American woman who's already done more than most of them have. And she's traveled the world and done all kinds of stuff. And that's all he had. He had that image in his head, but nothing else. He didn't know how to get at it. So I immediately hit on Nellie Bly, the globe-trotting journalist who famously beat Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days by like a couple of days. She really did that. And she had, gone undercover in insane asylums, all kinds of stuff like that. And I was like, well, here's a historical model for a character like that. We'll just do that. And then almost immediately, and her name was, do you remember on Letterman back in the 80s and 90s, he would go down and do remotes to the deli that was down the street?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I can't remember the name of the deli owner. But I remember,
it was Happy something was the name of the deli, but two Middle Eastern gentlemen, yes.
Yeah. And one time I misheard one of the names as being Sarah Jewell because it was something with those kind of notes in it, and I was like, that's a cool name. So I've been having this in my back pocket for like 20 years, and then like that's where her name came from. But almost immediately after coming up with the character, we were doing a story set in the 20s, Rise of the Black Flame. And I thought, oh, this would be a great way to introduce this character as an older woman and introduce her later in life and then say, oh, that she had these adventures younger with Ed Grey and then had done stuff later in life. And she has this traveling companion / probably romantic interest who's based on Josephine Baker. And so that's where she first appeared. And having been conceived as this like cool young woman, she immediately in my head became like much cooler as an older lady who has already seen and done it all, and just like we'll be at the hotel bar solving a mystery or something. So that's where she comes from. So
excellent.
She's appeared in a couple of different places.
Very cool. I've got one image because I don't want to spoil, but here's like your classic drawing room scene of both detectives and suspects. And who's your artist for this?
So it's Leila Del Duca is the interiors, and Christopher Mitten is on the covers, and Michelle Madsen is doing the colors. And Leila was my first choice on this. And long story short, I had literally made a list of artists that I thought would be good for this project, and Leila was number one on the list. And at Emerald City Comic Con a couple of years ago, Mike saw Leila's work and suggested it to our editor. And so then Katie O'Brien, our editor, thought it would be a great idea and then came to me to ask me what I thought about that idea, me not having voiced my opinion that Leila would be perfect for this book. So all three of us independently arrived at, oh, Leila Del Duca would be great for this. So we literally were able to walk over to her table and see if she was available to do the job. And she was. So
that's great. She's got a great clean line. And who's your colorist on this?
Michelle Madsen, Michelle Madsen does a lot of the Hellboy stuff. Anything that's not Dave Stewart is Michelle Madsen.
Oh, okay. Wow. No, they're great. And no, it really is. It's a very cool story. I'm a sucker for, again, not only the short stories and novels of this genre, but God, all those like Monogram movies and Universal and Fox and the countless both men and women detectives. Torchy Smith, I want to say, or I'm confusing it with I might be confusing it with Noel Sickles' comic strip character.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a who like her first name is Torchy. All I can tell you is it's like if they gave Lois Lane, a detective series because she is a journalist, So yeah, I'm telling but I'm telling.
Or Nick and Nora Charles,
sure,
all that kind of stuff. Without
but I'm saying like having the female protagonist really without needing a male companion or anything like that. So even though she had one, Torchy, but yeah, it's like I said.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that stuff. I'm a sucker for it. And certainly, I don't, the last 4 years were kind of stressful. I don't know if you saw the news at all about what was going on in the country. But
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I retreated hard into that stuff. So like Father Brown, the long-running BBC series, I spent a lot of time there.
Sure.
Yeah. And then
go ahead.
Oh no, it's like there was one. Oh God, I was watching Foyle's War, I think, which is a slightly more serious period mystery.
I love that show. Show. Yeah.
There was a little bit too much, homegrown British Nazi stuff happening in some of those episodes, and I was like,
sure.
This is a little bit too real for me right now. I got to take a break.
I have both BritBox and Acorn because I'm such a sucker for most British TV and the period stuff. And it's a great idea. And this is a murder mystery. Again, I showed you the draw room with the subjects, the suspects. I think it's cool. Now, you gave me issue 1. Is it out?
Yes. So issue 1 came out like about a month ago, and issue 2 came out like in the last week, last week, I think.
Oh, great.
Like and it's 5 altogether, so we've got a few months to go. So people can still find it on the stands or, get the inevitable trade. Either way.
I hear you. Have you guys I've only been in 2 comic shops since things were relaxed in Illinois and stuff. And really, in fact, one of them, and you guys know them, Art and Franco, they're Suburban Chicago store. That's where I spent last week because Franco came to town because he hadn't been in the store since 2019. And, we just wants to make sure things are going well from a business standpoint. So, yeah, it was like, all right, great. So, yeah, pretty much hung out there. And, other than that, and it's so weird because literally I live like 10 minutes away from a couple city shops, one right down the street from Wrigley Field, Chicago Comics. So, how about you guys? Have you had a chance to pop in yet?
So I got my second shot at the end of last month. And so by the middle of the month, I was able to venture back out. And I had only been to the comic shop once since February of last year. I went to pick up, Mignola did that quarantine hardcover, the Quarantine Gallery charity thing. Mm-hmm. So I ordered that online from Cosmic Monkey, my local shop. Waited until the store was empty. And, the employees are behind plexiglass, and it was nice to be there. But yeah, a couple weeks ago, I was able to go back for the first time and actually just shop. And I spent like an hour just hanging out, talking to the guys, browsing. It was awesome. Yes.
I understand. So Allison, how is the comic scene in Calgary?
Oh, well, I'm not in Calgary.
when you were there. I realize that, but I'm saying.
I didn't go. When I was there,
you weren't able to go.
When I was there this last time, I went nowhere. I literally went to set and then back to the apartment because I didn't want to be the carrier pigeon for the virus. So I did a whole lot of nothing, which was unfortunate. It was just, anyway. I haven't been to a comic book shop in LA yet, but I have been to a baseball game in San Diego.
Great.
That's because I'm a huge Mets fan. So the Mets played the Padres, and since I had hotel points at the Hilton Bayfront, my favorite hotel whenever I'm in San Diego, I went to 2 games. I went to a Saturday night game and then the Sunday game.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was crazy because I walk into the Odyssey bar and like it's all the wait stuff, and I was like, "Hi, I'm out of contacts," and they're like, "Oh my God, Allison!" Because we've known them for, God, Chris, how long have we
since it opened,
12 years, like
since it opened.
Yeah.
And that hotel bar has one of the most remarkably constant and consistent staffs. That and like the Sheraton in Seattle, where we are for Emerald City.
Funny.
Yeah.
That's crazy. No, I know. I'm man. I understand why they're not going live this summer, San Diego. I won't be able to make the Thanksgiving show because it is Thanksgiving. But I did record a panel for the online presentation they're doing later this month. So I guess I'm a little involved. But yeah, did you guys do anything for San Diego? Either Wynonna or
no.
Okay. Yeah. No, I get it.
I just went to a baseball game. I was like so happy to be, and I was like so happy to be with people.
Yeah.
That I literally was talking to everybody around me because I was just like, "Hi, how are you? Are you from here?" Like I was just like,
sure.
Like all of a sudden, all of my like extrovert tendencies just like exploded, and I like made best friends with like everybody I ran into. So.
That's awesome. No, I don't blame you. That's great. Will you guys be at Rose City later in the fall?
I hope to be. I haven't spoken to them yet. They haven't invited me yet, but it occurs to me that they have never invited me. Every year that show has existed, I put my hand up and say, "Hey, I'd love to come and be at your show," and they give me a table and put me on some panels. But I have to do that. But everybody I know that worked that show has moved on, so I don't know who's there anymore.
I understand,
and it feels weird because they follow me on Twitter, but I'm like, I don't want to just say out loud like, "Hey, invite me to your show." Of course. But I'm just gonna have to figure out who to email.
Well, you just did.
I guess if Rose City is listening,
we'll see. I don't know who you are. I mean, I don't take anything for granted. I have no idea. God, Carl Kerschel emailed me. And he's like, "John, I don't know if you know who I am." I'm like, "Of course I know who he is." But he's like, "I've been listening to you for a long time." I'm like, "Oh my God, Carl Kerschel wastes his time listening to me. What the hell's going on?" Like these people you guys should have much better things to do. But it was nice. I mean, no. But yeah, no, it's it's nice that we're gradually getting back to normal. I'm going to in Connecticut, Terrificon, at the end of the last day of July through the first August weekend. And that's going to be a lot of fun. And it's at Mohegan Sun, one of the Native American casinos. And I do gamble. I only bet on horse racing. I won't be wasting my time at the casino part. It's a great resort. And I'm really looking, I'm going to swim. I'm really going to, when I'm not on the convention floor, I'm taking full advantage. And tons of little shops like at places like Mandalay Bay and Caesars in Vegas and stuff. It's a really nice facility. So that'll be fun. I wanted to ask you.
I'm really looking.
Go ahead. No, keep going, Chris. I'm sorry.
Ask your question because it may be what I was about to say.
No, it's unrelated. Keep going then. If you had something.
What I was going to say is I'm very much looking forward to getting back to conventions. Because for me, I'm an introvert who works at home, right? So the last 15 months were like my normal days, but without the periodic interruptions of all the socializing I do at conventions. So normally I'll stay at home. I rarely see other people. Most of my social interactions are with people behind cash registers. And then like every few months, I go to a place where I know literally hundreds of people, and I spend 72 hours straight talking to everybody I know and having meals with people and like getting up early and going and staying up late and walking around and talking to people. And then I'm like, okay, I'm good. And then I go home and I don't do it again. So like I work in like,
which is crazy because like everybody lives here.
Like, well, you're right.
We all live here.
But we all do this. I mean, I'm aware that some people are slightly more social than I am, and and then there's the Helioscope crowd who basically has like a work environment where they can hang out.
Yep.
And I often get invited. I'll run into those guys and they're like, "Oh, you should stop by the studio," and I'm like, "I'm sure I will at some point." And I have done it like once in the last 9 years. I'm definitely next time anybody invites me anywhere, I've got to go because I'm just sick of talking to myself. Like I've heard everything I have to say. I'm done. Thank God, like our kid was here. Our kid is now 17. So I had like a constant companion when I wanted one for the last 15 months, which was nice.
And just feel sorry for them, guys, because like the poor kid. I mean,
how did Danny's education go? I mean, it's, again, forgive me and whatever, but yeah, that's tough. That's tough. Dealing with everything. Oh, did Chris? Looks like Chris froze. Yeah, it looks like Chris froze. Al, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay.
I'm in the higher signal down here in the basement.
Yes. So. Yeah, Chris.
Chris, you're frozen, right? He's logging back in.
No problem. All right.
Yeah, it was a struggle. It was not. I mean, it was junior year of high school on Zoom, which is like junior year alone is really complicated, and so it was just kind of just a lot. And the way that they did the structure, I mean, Chris can talk about it a little bit more than I can. Is that they did it in quarters, and so it was way more intensive and a quicker turnaround on each subject. And it was
a nightmare. It was a nightmare because so what they did was, rather than doing 8 classes for a year, they did 4 classes at a time.
He froze again, but oh well. Froze.
I don't know what's going on.
Oh, you poor guy, man. Bring the phone down and sit next to Allison, or sit next to Allison, or whatever.
That's a problem. Maybe we have to hear each other and stuff. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, and last time it was you freezing up wherever you were.
It's his turn.
Exactly. So that's kind of crazy. No, I taught. It's that big. Throw it back when it's only that big, Chris. It looks like he's holding a fish. That big. Here he's coming back. All right, we'll see if this works. Hang on. There we go. You're back, and you're moving, so that's good. So yeah, you were saying 4 classes per quarter, I assume.
Yeah, so like basically between September and the beginning of January, you would do an entire year's worth of a class, and then February through June was an entire year of class. But that meant that the pace of instruction meant that like every day was something huge, and that grades could fluctuate. Like if a kid like kind of missteps and like misses a thing or kind of swings and misses, the grade could swing from like a B to an F, like from one day to the next. And so it was just constant, like, and I'm very much trying to teach our child independence, so I'm not trying to micromanage. My job was largely a cheerleader, like, hey, you're on top of it today.
Sure.
But man, it was rough. It was rough. So like I'm sure like many kids, our kid went from being basically straight A's with the occasional B to like, oh God, I hope you pass this class so you don't have to take it again next year.
I get it. No, I was teaching from January to May. So mid-semester, that's when the lockdown happened, and I had to finish online. Obviously the kids hated it. I hated it. And yeah, all it really did was be like, and I was substitute teaching for a woman that had an opportunity to go to Ireland to teach for that semester. I don't know how things worked out with her in Ireland, but that said, I'm like, all right, I'll try teaching. I'm like, yeah, I'm not a teacher. That's all right. I'm not going to. And again, unfortunately, I had the worst case scenario. Maybe I'll feel different years from now. I don't mind mentoring, but really, you know how it is when you have a class, and truly, I get it. Some people are there because they have to be. They're not as enthusiastic about the class as other students and stuff. And yeah, man, it's just like, I wasn't put on this earth to, kick kids in the rear and go, okay, come on, get your work done. It's like,
I hear you, man. Literally in a former life, I was a middle school teacher when I was in my early 20s.
I do remember. Yes.
Yeah, I taught 7th grade Texas history along the Rio Grande Valley, and it was. I worked off my karmic debt because I was a smart ass as a kid, and after 2 years of that, I was shriven. Like I was snow white and clean when I walked out that door because I had paid for every smart ass joke I made or time I was mouthed back to a teacher.
Ugh.
Nope, not for me.
I mentioned Monkeybrain at the beginning of the pod because I didn't realize, and I'm assuming it was because I either talked to Paul or Coover at some point that, Bandette obviously continues as a digital comic and stuff and everything, and under the Monkeybrain imprint. Are there other Monkeybrain books or properties that are still being put out digitally?
No, that's it.
Okay.
We have largely left the lights on for Paul and Colleen because they're happy to continue to serialize Bandette through us, and we exist as a kind of like archive of a handful of the ones that we did that you can still get. The rights to a lot of them reverted because the time had elapsed.
So
so a lot of this stuff you can still get, but you can just get it under the creator's own thing, and we just were like, here, have your rights back,
Yeah, people like Chris Sabella and Ibrahim Mustafa with High Crimes immediately comes to mind. And now I'm blanking on Chris, your series.
Edison Rex with Dennis Culver.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed, with Dennis Culver. Yeah. So those two come to immediate mind. Feel free to rattle off the greatest hits of Monkeybrain if you'd like.
Well, Amelia Cole was a big favorite with a lot of people, and that's found continuing life as trade collections.
Yes, indeed.
Dave was a great one.
Yeah.
I mean, they were.
It was fun because the thing with Dave was like so great because at the time I've been in with IDW, and so I was talked to them about having IDW publish the print collections, and then at a certain point IDW wanted to do more series with them, and so we just gave them the rights back so they could do everything.
That's great.
Because we weren't like precious about that. We just like the whole point of it was like that so people could get their work out and then get more work or like have life as another thing in print and that kind of thing. It wasn't so we could sit on somebody's IP, you know what I mean?
No, exactly. You guys came from that creator point of view. This was like 2012, right?
Launched in 2012. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm glad I remembered. But yeah, I mean that's the thing. This is the early days of
actually this week today.
I think happy anniversary. Crazy.
I think it was today in 2012.
Wow. Well, I know.
I can't believe I can't believe.
July 3rd, I think, was when the books actually hit.
July 3rd, yeah, and then we ended up turning everything on because we did it. We coined it Independence Day. So
very cool. No, I remember those initial press conferences and stuff, and I'm like, this is great because and truly, it's funny what goes around comes around because I think a lot of creators took business in their own hands during the pandemic and found other platforms beyond comic stores to get their stuff out there. And I'm probably a broken record now for my listeners, but Ed Brubaker and what he did at Panel Syndicate with Marcos Martin and Alex DeCampi's another good example of that. I think it's great. And again, I think Monkeybrain made me aware of a lot of creators I hadn't been aware of till you guys gave them the opportunity to publish. So, people like Chris and Ibrahim.
That's what we did. And I do, I'm very proud of, in a lot of cases, we became not exactly a farm team, but we were like an entry point for people that maybe had difficulty getting the attention of other publishers. And there were projects already in the works, right? But then in a couple of cases, like with Bandette, I went to Paul and Colleen and said, what do you want to do? Like, if you could do anything you want, I'll publish it.
Yeah.
And so that book exists because we asked that question. Because it wasn't a thing that they were doing before. But it was very much a question of, like, them figuring out the thing, what did Colleen most want to draw? And what did Paul most want to write? And then they did it, and we published it, and now it exists in the world. And it's one of my favorite things. There are only a handful of titles that I will read the second that they are available to me. Like, I will stop whatever I'm doing. Like, Astro City was that book for a long time. Like, all work stops. And Bandette. And I get to be the first person outside of their apartment that gets to see the new issue of Bandette. And like once every 3 or 4 years, I'll catch a typo. But by and large, it's just me reading it for enjoyment.
Yeah. No, I can appreciate that, definitely.
We were in a lot of ways, we were an interim solution for Comixology, because we went to them with this suggestion while they were behind the scenes developing what would become Submit. And so they didn't have a pathway for independent creators to sell their stuff directly. And so in a lot, they kind of funneled those people to us.
Right. And not just like Submit, but like their originals line. So like they had been talking about doing that since when we were first talking about Monkeybrains. So that had been something that they had been wanting to do from the very beginning of the conception of the company. So it's just like really nice to see that like that there is now like a larger platform for, you know, people, you know, it's kind of a democratization of creativity and art and everything, you know. I mean, it's kind of like this business is so hard, and it's such a small margin business, and it takes so much effort and labor and work, especially from the artist's perspective. You know, it just is like, you know, I was always like trying to come up with, I'm always still trying to come up with a way to make that solution work for people, because it's a hard business, you know, as you well know, John. I'm sure you've talked to many people about that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, I'm ringside for what you guys do and the peaks and valleys. And no, it's an ever evolving thing. I mean, you know, I keep working on the word balloon book, and then something, you know, there's a big change in the business. Like, oh, I want that in there too. You know, so I mean, I'm chasing the ghost. It's like, all right, sit down and finish at least one of these things, dummy, and then and you can put it in the next one. But God, in fact, Cully Hamner's partner, Elisa, who's a teacher, she just co-wrote this great academic look at the, you know, symbiosis between comics and Hollywood, and she even with an afterwards managed to get WandaVision and Winter Soldier in there, and then they're going to press or print, and you know, AT&T divests DC and all their properties to Discovery. And it's like, oh shit, that close. We're that close. If only we had
God knows what that's gonna look like, you know. I mean, just like it's like, oh, like every time I hear something out of that, I'm just like always like, okay. Like,
yeah. No, agreed.
What's happen in the next year, you know? Because it affects every publisher, like, you know, especially if anything having to do with DC or Marvel. And I've been saying this from the very beginning, and especially when we were doing Monkeybrain, I think in every single interview that I talked about, like how it wasn't a competition, like where it comes from comic book publishers, you know, it was we're kind of all in this together, and the better that Marvel or DC does, the better it lifts everybody up, because it gets people into the stores, you know, and it helps the retailers. And you know, I really like always, you know, felt that it was like it's a holistic business, you know. It's not like, you know, like a lot of people like to it like it's a sports team or something. It's not that, you know. No. Like we really all kind of survive, you know, creators, publishers, you know, even, you know, fans or whatever, to get the material to come out, like with the structure that like you can get a decent page rate over here, and then maybe you're going to do your independent work and, you know, not take an advance or whatever to get it done, you know, so the artist can get paid. And I mean, it's a whole lot of like give and take that goes on in this business. And whenever you get to a situation where you've got a company that seems to be losing all of their institutional knowledge by not having the people that have been there to have tried the things that didn't work, and then when, you know, if you lose them, then you don't have that institutional knowledge anymore. It's just like I'm scared for everybody, you know, because of that.
No, I get that. Chris, I'm going to ask you a question, but I want to make an observation and hear you both your opinions of it. I really think, and again, this has been part of the conversation recently with interviews I've done. I really think that Discovery taking over the IP section of Warner's and everything, including the comics, may be a very good thing, because I'm assuming, like, for instance, the example of the Food Network, which falls under the Discovery umbrella, all those chefs, you know, they're making their cookbooks and other books and things. So I do think there's a publishing component with a lot of the DIY that Discovery represents, unlike AT&T that clearly wanted to divest of all of its publishing arms and stuff. So that's why I think beyond being good stewards of the TV and the film side of Warner Brothers, I do think that there's a reason for them, and they might recognize the need for DC Comics to not just be something they would license to an IDW or a Dark Horse or whomever, but that, they're still publishing it themselves. So I don't know what your thoughts are, both of you.
Well, I mean, the AT&T thing was always a weird fit anyway, and never really seemed like it worked terribly well. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's been, as far as institutional wisdom going away, I don't think that anybody that I worked directly with at DC, or even that I dealt with directly in my time after leaving DC, but while iZombie was happening, none of those people are there anymore. They're all gone. And I have a couple of friends that I know from elsewhere who have since gone to work there. But in the publishing side of things, I don't know anybody over there anymore. I mean, that was there before. Yeah, and it's weird because I dip my toes in. It's one of those things where, every once in a while I'll check in to see what's going on. And I'll like, this book looks interesting, and I'm going to read it. And so like last summer, I turned on the DC Universe Infinite app where you can just basically read everything that's come out.
Sure.
It's been out for more than a few months. And I read so much, and some of it was really good. And I was like, oh, cool, this is really good and fun. But in terms of longer term plans, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, I think at this point, any change might be a good change. I mean, so we'll see. Because man, you know me, I love those characters. I mean, that is my native country. And for years, I said that I was like a Cuban living in exile, waiting for the last Castro to die, and that the DC bullet was my flag. That was my national flag. And I would love to go home. That would be nice. Thankfully, like what they do with television has been by and large so good. Like that Stargirl show was fantastic. Like it was so much fun. More.
I absolutely agree.
And I could, like, having enjoyed a lot of the CW stuff over the years, kind of dipping in and out. I deal with those shows the same way I deal with the comics, where if there's a big crossover, I'll watch all the episodes. But I don't have time to keep up with 5 shows.
Sure.
But the Stargirl I'll watch from beginning to end.
I'm so with you.
Having seen like on the other CW shows, they would get close to comic, but then they'd have to back away from it a little bit. It couldn't quite go all in. But with Stargirl, they were just like, screw it. Like, we're gonna do page accurate screen versions of these costumes and just go all in. And it was fantastic. Loved it.
No,
the animated stuff is always good too. But
I agree with that as well. Allison, any thoughts on Crazy DC right now, or?
Yeah, I mean, I have some stuff I can talk about, but yeah, okay. I mean, I think they've always done well with, especially the animation side. So I think that's probably where their strengths lie, which is kind of that marriage of both worlds a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
I understand.
I just worry about everybody.
No, believe me, I hear you. I know. Well, and because really, when I did this academic talk, one of the viewers was like, what's going to happen when they cancel DC Comics? I'm like, not going to happen. I'm like, they might go to IPs that will be published by IDW or Dark Horse, like I mentioned. I'm like, I think that's truly the only worst case scenario. I don't think they'll stop making the story. Like, they themselves may stop making the stories. They might turn the license over. But Allison, too, over at IDW, I mean, as an example, like doing licensed books, they've never been better. And Chris, you and I know, growing up on a lot of lousy ones back in the day. I mean, it's like, no, if IDW is making Wynonna Earp or Star Trek and stuff, well, in the case of Wynonna Earp, it's a comic first, and you got Bo there, obviously, making sure everything's right. But Bo Smith, everybody. But also, like when IDW does Star Trek, they take it seriously. They have talented people that really get Star Trek. Frankly, and again, this is me saying this, on a level much more superior to what we're getting currently on the current TV shows.
Well, and also like, the people that they deal with as far as the licensor, the person who's in charge of the Star Trek license that approves all this stuff or whatever, is also like very knowledgeable about the property. You know what I mean? But I think that especially when you have a licensed property, which is like, if to be frank, they're bread and butter right now. That's what's keeping the lights on is their license work, and so you're gonna like make sure that that's taken care of very well.
You are yes, very, very true. Chris, you're liking new Star Trek more than I am. It's all right. I don't mind.
It's okay. It's a big tent. There's room for all of us.
It's a big tent, absolutely. Well, and I'll even say, go ahead, and then I'll say my thing.
Like I just like all Star Trek. Star Trek really got me through the last 15 months.
I believe it.
In substantial ways. Like I started a rewatch project with our kid the first week of lockdown, right? So the first week the schools closed, all the stores closed. I was like, we're going to bring some structure to our days. So we started watching Deep Space Nine from the beginning. We watched an episode a day. And that carried us through most of the year. And then I was like, and now we're going to do Next
Generation.
At the
end. Y'all were at the end in January.
Yeah.
Because I was here.
7 seasons, sure.
And then right now we're like a third of the way through the third season of Next Generation. But then while I was doing this, I was like, man, God, I love Star Trek. And so last summer I rewatched all of TOS from the beginning. And right now I am just starting season 3 of Star Trek Enterprise. So like I'm in it for all of it. I'm slowly working my way through the animated series, man. But like I love these new shows.
Dedication going back through Enterprise, I gotta say. It's dedication.
It's paying off now that I got up to the Xindi in season 3.
And I've watched all of it, John. Okay,
well,
I've done that, and I was like, that first couple seasons, I was like, it's like, ooh.
Well,
and then they think it's good, but like,
it takes
right.
time.
Well, the problem I think with Enterprise was they got overnoted by UPN, who wanted that next generation vibe. That by the so you got Next Gen, then you got Voyager, and because Deep Space Nine thankfully was its own show from a broad standpoint and everything. But that said, it was Enterprise. Like I know Braga and Berman are like, well, we want the first year to be on Earth, building the Enterprise and figuring out the Earth politics, and they're like, no, get in space immediately. And God, you're right. Those first 2 seasons, it's like, okay, we've seen this before. And truly, my frustration is not with classic Star Trek, which I do think goes until the end of Enterprise, but it's Discovery and also Picard in terms of they have boiled themselves down to tropes. And I miss the real science fiction we would get from the older shows. Did
you watch season 3?
Oh yeah, which was better. Of Discovery, was better, but I still have my problems with it. I won't deny.
How about Lower Decks? Did you watch Lower Decks?
Absolutely, dude. I watch everything, and that's what I was going to say. Okay. I watch every week with the optimistic approach of, well, maybe I'll like this a little bit better next time. I would say Lower Decks is my favorite of all the new Treks. But that said, I really only like 3 episodes. I think the main character from Lower Decks is exactly like Michael Burnham. And I'm like, we already have a character like this. Why didn't you make her a different ethnicity? Why didn't you make her... I'm sorry, I don't buy the rule breakers that Burnham and Mariner, and I forget what her supposed real name is as the captain's daughter. But yeah, I'm just like... okay, but you already have
Beckett Mariner.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. And I'm like, truly, and especially, I really like the last episode of Lower Decks. And first seasons are awkward sometimes. You're figuring your show out. You're figuring what works and what doesn't. So again, we're only a few weeks away from season 2 of Lower Decks, and I remain optimistic. Discovery, I still don't understand why Burnham had to be specifically Spock's sister. I think that is hacky writing at its worst. What would have been more interesting, in my opinion, was make her raised by a different Vulcan family, and you really missed an opportunity for Sarek and a hypothetical other Burnham Vulcan father to basically be, okay, we've got kids that are kind of in the same boat. How are you dealing with it? How are you doing? Because to make it all under Sarek's umbrella, to me, is like saying Martin Luther King was the only civil rights leader. And it's like, Sarah can't be the only Vulcan that has an opinion about the Earth-human relation. So please,
to
Paul, everybody.
To Paul's right there. She has
valid.
You're not wrong. I think that, kind of there's so much like behind the scenes nonsense that went on with that show in particular.
I'm sure.
Like, which I've tried to stay away from it. I've tried as much as possible just to watch the show and enjoy the show for what it is. But then,
he's been banished once again. Your agonizer, please, Mr. Roberson. What do you think, Allison? What do you think? Well, he's going. I mean, I appreciate you saying.
I haven't watched it, so I have no opinion.
Any of the new stuff? No. Oh, you haven't had time. Sure.
No. Yeah.
All right. Do you
have an opinion?
Working on television, is it harder to watch because it's like, Christ, I'm surrounded by the donuts. I'm making them now. I'm watching them being made.
When I'm editing, yeah. Because like I said, I think last time I talked about how when I'm editing and I'm like literally looking at video footage like all day.
Sure.
And then I'm like, I need to like not look at it. So I like to listen to podcasts. I've been listening to a lot of your stuff, actually. I really enjoyed your Tom King interview about you.
Oh,
which I thought was amazing. I thought was great.
That was
I thought he did a really good job too.
Oh my God, yeah. And honestly, that was very humbling that he's like, how about if I interview you for your 16th anniversary? And I'm like, all right.
I'm glad you guys did that. I was like, I want to know about John Suntress.
Oh, thanks, buddy. That's lovely. Well, that honestly, it means a lot. I appreciate it. Here comes Chris.
I also listened to Chaikin's interview that you did recently, which I had to tell you. Okay, so y'all talked about Little Shop of Horrors.
Shit, you're still frozen. Go on, buddy.
I saw Little Shop of Horrors off Broadway in 1984.
Wow.
I was 10.
Wow.
Yeah. It was great.
I bet.
And Ellen Green's dad, I grew up in musical theater, and I did at the Music Hall in Houston. Her dad played Nathan Detroit in Guys and Dolls.
Wow.
And I have a picture. God, I should have pulled it, and maybe I'll pull it and send it to you, of me pretending to drink a beer at the age of 10 with Ellen Green's dad.
That's awesome. That's terrific. Wow. I had no idea. I didn't know her dad was, a performer as well.
Yeah, he is too. He was too. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I know. I was so happy. Like, I'm always like, Howard, you direct the conversation. Whatever the fuck you want to talk about is fine with me.
I forgot. I've met him once. We were at this lunch for image stuff like one year at San Diego, and he was sat next to me, and he's hilarious. And I had never really talked to him before. And I was like, oh my God, you're hilarious.
Yeah. No, and goddamn, every time I talk to him, I come away with like 4 or 5 recommendations of film or books and stuff. All right, you're back, Chris. We were just talking about.
Yeah, I didn't realize that Chaikin was so into musical theater, which I think is amazing because I love musical theater. I mean, like, I grew up in it. I grew up performing it and seeing it,
Well, right now he's in the middle of his Hey Kids Comics Romana Clef about the comic book business. And I'm like, you got to do this for Broadway because I know you have the knowledge. And I think it would be so fun, much in the same way that what Chris is doing with Sarah Jewell, that it's just kind of a fun retro thing that, I love. And of course, he's like, yeah, not going to happen, Pally. And I'm like, all right, whatever. But he's great. Hey, Chris Ramsey wants to know if there were any particular locked room mysteries that were influences behind the book.
It was more just the general vibe of, while I cite Agatha Christie's Miss Marple stories, it was more a couple of the Poirot stories that were like structurally what I had in mind.
Sure.
And that's probably because of the movie versions of them. But like, Murder on the Orient Express or Death on the Nile, stories like that were what was specifically in my mind when I was coming up with it.
Have you seen those Margaret Rutherford? Isn't it Margaret Rutherford?
I've seen one of them. The Agatha Christie solving the mysteries.
Yeah, the Marple movies. Movies. They're fun.
I saw the first one.
They're fun. She was amazing. I mean, she really wasn't anything like Ms. Marple as described in the books. But man, she's one of my favorite actresses from England. And man, any movie that she shows up in, I'm there. And I've watched on those either Acorn or BritBox. They've got all 4 of them.
Yeah.
Just that period too of the 60s in England, where MGM had their studios at Pinewood and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Those movies all those movies fascinate me. So whatever. So there's my observation beyond Ramsey's question. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny, Allison, I don't know if you knew, but in King's Rorschach, they never name him, but it's pretty obvious that Jorge Fornes is drawing Columbo as a cop. That is one of the main characters. It's so funny. It's just so great funny. Seeing young Peter Falk trying to figure out Rorschach and stuff. So, look at this. Ramsey says, the St. Tryan's film she was in was great. I don't know that film, but I'll take your word for it, Ramsey. Again, I knew her from a movie called On the Double, a Danny Kaye early 60s movie that was a World War II Danny Kaye classic where he doubles for a great British general, and Margaret Rutherford plays the Dowager aunt that he has to prove it's him and not the imposter that he really is and stuff. Funny stuff. There we go. It's never. We always love to see the cats or the dogs. That's all right. We love it. No, I love it, man. That's life. That's fine. The cat doesn't give a shit. She misses you. That's good. I like that. I live vicariously.
He is a needy bastard, this guy.
That's cool. I get it. What else, guys? I'm trying to think of anything. I mean, what did you read or watch, Allison, during the pandemic? What did you do? Like, how did you kill time? Did you have time to kill?
Treadmill, which was
good.
Really helpful.
Had a girl.
Yeah, in like November, I was like, because when I'm in LA, I'm in like the hills, and it's really bad for my knees. So I got a treadmill because I was like, I have to move, because I was like editing a lot and like trying to finish up all the Wynonna stuff, and then like I just like I need to exercise every day. Like this is like getting ridiculous. So I started doing that.
Yeah,
I watch a lot of baseball.
Good.
I watch baseball every day if I can.
Did you watch South Korean baseball when they were showing it?
I watched a little bit of it.
It was interesting.
I did. I was like I tried to get into it. I was like, okay, like but I did watch the 2020 season, which was the shortened season.
Yeah.
That was like mostly when I was in Calgary, actually. I would like watch it because didn't have anything. I couldn't do anything else besides work.
Sure.
And then, but this season, it was fun to watch them play. I did watch the game. Did you see? Are you a Cubs fan?
Yes.
So did you see when Bill Murray was? How great was that when he came in saying like, "Take me out to the ball game," and then they had him in the booth, and I was like, "Oh my god, how funny!" It was just so nice to see Wrigley Field like full too, and the fans were just like, it's so nice to see the fans get like so into the games right now.
Oh, well, we missed it. Everybody missed it. I live 3 miles away from the park, and will find myself like I was telling you guys off the air. I think Chicago Comics is one of my local stores, and they're literally down the street on Clark from Clark and Addison, where Wrigley Field is. And I mean, I do avoid going there on game day because that's just that area is just swarming with people, not only in the park, but really even it's a party outside the park. And they've really gotten smart and built up the area with great places and stuff. So it's great.
Well, and the Cubs are doing great this season. I mean, they really are.
Except for yesterday.
Yeah. Well, dude, did you see the Mets and who were playing? Oh, the Braves. 20-2.
There you go.
Beat us. 20-2.
And you see, I'm being older than you. I remember when the rivalry between the Cubs and the Mets were fierce. I was 4 in 1969, but I do remember it clearly because our family was we were all so excited, and then of course the Mets. That's all right. I'm over it. And again. Finally, that's all right. Hey, no,
it's few and far between, though, John. Few and far between.
Honestly, my heart went out to the Mets in '73, and even particularly Yogi Berra.
Because that was like the worst year, right? Like
they made the they won the pennant. They were in the World Series. They lost. The sad thing was poor Willie Mays. It was his last year playing, and one of his last plays he gets tagged out at home, and it's like, holy shit, Willie Mays just got. And again, it was like 42-year-old Willie Mays still playing. But I always felt bad for Yogi Berra, the manager, one of the most brilliant minds in baseball. He comes in second overall, and they fire him. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. I loved Yogi. Yogi was amazing.
22, John. It's okay. They've been holding in there. I mean, we are so injured right now. It is just like we're finally starting to get our bats back, but like, and the pitching has just been exceptional, despite the fact that we've had injuries there as well. I mean, it's just like I don't even know how they're still in first place right now.
See, and Peter Beiser had the same experience as you, Allison. He went to a Phillies-Yankees game a few weeks ago when Philly went full capacity. It was weird sitting next to strangers again. Sure. Absolutely.
I loved it. I thought it would be really weird about getting out because when you're inside, I get in like to shut-in mode kind of when I'm not allowed to go anywhere for a long time. But I think the more that like I've gotten out, we're all fully vaccinated, so it's kind of like it's just taken a little bit of getting used to, but it's just nice to see people again. I got to go to dinner. I've been here for like a little bit, and I've gotten to go to dinner with or drinks or lunch or whatever with a bunch of people since I've been back, and it's just like I forgot how much I liked hanging out with people. Like I was like, wow, like that's like it's stupid, but it's not stupid, Like I listened to. I'm gonna go back to you, John, because I like talking about you. I listened to one of your podcasts with like Corinna and Gabe and Parker. And I was like, oh, I forgot how much I like hanging out with these guys. like I miss hanging out with them,
Later tonight, Gabe and I are going to be podcasting. We did both seasons of The Outer Limits, the original Outer Limits.
Yeah, I would see that. Yeah.
And next week, we're going to start a show called Kinescope, where we'll be doing a look back at the golden age of television and those great anthology shows, but also like basically live TV and just that energy that live TV had when it was brand new. But tonight we were going to take this week off, and a couple of our fans for the Outer Limits show, we would end up talking a bit about the man who shot Liberty Valance, and it would just come up. And they're like, "You're going to do that Liberty Valance podcast, right?" And we're like, "All right, what the hell? It's only one." And when much, everybody missed being social, and we'll do the show for an hour. We'll sign off. And then we'll keep talking for a couple hours. And literally, I'm up till like 3 a.m. my time. I don't care. I'm not on a regular. I don't have to show up to work or early or anything like that. And it really was this like great hangout between me, Gabe, Parker, and Ian Brill and Bill Meyer and occasionally Parks. Yeah, so it was nice.
I know all those people. I was like,
there you go.
Parker's like down the street, so
Who lives down the street, Jeff?
Oh, Parker. Like we're like all we're like I said, we're all here. So like
well, guys,
I would see Rucka like walking down the street during the pandemic, and I would almost stop and be like, "Hey, Greg," but then I was like, "Well, little pandemic, maybe I should."
Well, that's
try to talk to somebody.
That's when I came in 2019 to Rose City, because I'm like, seriously, if I could pick up and move anywhere, I'd be right there with you guys, because truly, you're among my several dozen friends that now live in Portland. And it's like, Christ, I'd see you guys all the time. Parker's like that. Bendis and Rucker are like that. The Fractions, everybody.
Yeah.
So it's weird. It's weird. Living here is like what I thought comic creators were like when I was a kid. Like they all knew each other. Like,
yes.
And like, but it's real.
Yeah. Have you? Go ahead, finish, Chris. Because then
I was just going to say, but as I mentioned earlier, so most of us are like reclusive introverts that we only see each other at conventions in other cities.
No, I understand it. That's why, Brian was nice. Bendis is like, let me stay with him, and I'm like, hey, can I like have like a mother-in-law kind of stay? Because I really want to see the city and go to Helioscope and just I wanted to go to Powell's and have time beyond the convention to enjoy the city. He's like, yeah, stay as long as you want. And I'm like, all right, great. So I came in on a Wednesday, and like you said, I went to Helioscope, and I'm hanging with Steve Lieber and Parker over there, And I came with my little micro cassette, and I'm like, all right, I'll do a bunch of, or it's not it's just a micro digital recorder. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do interviews. But I was having so much fun, and I really needed a break. And I'm just like, I'm just gonna hang out with everybody, and it was fantastic. I loved it. It was, I mean, plus I love your guys' city. It's an amazing city.
Oh, it's a beautiful city, isn't it? Like, I just love everything about it, like the architecture. Everybody's so nice here. I mean, like, you just like sincerely nice, which is amazing. I mean, I can't tell you, like, when we decided, because it took about a year for us to make the move from Austin to here, because it's just like, as a lot, you know, we had to like figure out selling the house and getting it ready. And then, you know, we had so many books, you know, like, how are we going to move like all of this stuff like across the country? And, you know, like, how am I going to do my job? And like, you know, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And I remember, like, even before I got here, like, Parker like drove me around neighborhoods and stuff just so I could like see like where I might want to like look for something. And then we talked about schools, because at the time Danny was like in the 2nd grade and would be going to 3rd grade. And so like we talked about like what schools Parker's kids are going to, you know, it was just like trying to figure out like the logistics of like where in town we might want to be and stuff. And that was incredibly generous. And, you know, when we first got here, like Jen Van Meter and Greg were like, oh, there's this art camp, and like we got our kid into art camp. You know, like, it's just like,
and Paul and Colleen helped us unpack.
Paul and Colleen like literally helped us unpack our truck when we got here.
Sure.
I mean, like, it was, I mean, and you know, and then we were like, and then Matt Wagner was like, hey, like, come join our book club, you know, and we're just like, we just moved to heaven.
Yeah. No, everybody's saying. Yeah.
We instantly had this community of people that were like, let me help you. And I'm just like, and we knew a lot of them, like, I guess kind of well, but like not so well. That's like, you know, like, oh, I'm going to take time out and make sure that like your kid is an art. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, it was just because we were part of the comics community, and people are so generous and nice here that they like were willing to help us, you know, which was amazing.
We had not met Rucka and Van Meter before that. Like, we followed each other on Twitter.
And we knew Mike Lark in common. So we had been friends with Mike Lark because he was in Dallas, and known him for a very long time. And so that was that connection, really.
But Jen just hit me up like over DM out of the blue and said, hey, do you know about this art camp? It was literally across the street from our apartment.
Oh, that's great.
And we're like, it sounds good. Let's do that. Because we were in a pretty small 2-bedroom apartment for the first 9 months we were here with a 7-year-old, 8-year-old. But yeah. And it was, man, yeah, I like this town a lot. And, you know, for the first like 6 months we were here, they were doing this promotional thing where the trains were free within a certain radius.
Sure.
So like if you were like, you know, close into downtown, you could just hop on the Max and go anywhere for free.
That's
and
great.
We lived like 2 blocks from a stop. And so that entire summer, I would just take our kid, like, let's go to the zoo. Let's go downtown. Let's go to a museum. Let's, you know, and very quickly discovered that, like, as fun as it was to take the train everywhere, there were places where it was easier to drive.
Sure.
Because we did end up walking like 5 miles from a train stop to the Cosmic Monkey the first time we went. That was a little bit too far.
That's great, man. No, I want to come back on a non-convention weekend so that we can spend more time. Because that was like, I'm like, well, that'll be perfect. I'll go to the show and I'll see everybody before. And it's like, yeah, everybody's busy because they're going to be at the show all weekend. So they're cramming all their work in before. And I'm like, dummy, you know, and it's, I'm like, all right, you know.
For a long time, there were various things around the show. Like Matt and Kelly Sue would have everybody over to their place. Mostly focused on out-of-town convention goer, you know, guests. But then they would invite all the locals too. And so that was a really kind of cool way to kick off the weekend. You go out there. But then the show became like a 3-day show. And then like having that on a Thursday night just didn't really work. And then they stopped doing it. And for a long time, we would have people over to the house after the show.
Yeah.
And I got so tired of that because I love everybody so much, but just get the hell out of my house. Like, I don't need you here at 1:00 in the morning on a school night.
I'm with you.
old man Roberson.
I get it.
Hey, we step up. Like, so
we do.
We host New Year's parties almost
Nice.
every year. And so there'll be, 50 people fucking up our floors on a New Year's Eve.
Okay, don't get Chris about the start about the floors because we
Take your
put in a no stiletto heel policy.
All I'm saying is, if you're going to somebody's house and has hardwood floors, don't wear fucking stiletto heels. It's wrong.
I'll remember that for my next visit. I promise you. I'll only be in flats when I come over. I swear to God.
So the next year I put it into the invites. No stiletto heels.
I don't.
And I was like, our floors are already messed up. Who cares? And Chris was like,
Yeah,
Hey, I can see where the person went. I can track her movements around the room.
Little black, little black marks and everything from the heels. I understand.
No, they're just
they
pock
were
marks.
just like indentions.
Oh wow!
In our wood floors.
Like a hail.
If they were pristine, I would have been upset, but they're not. Okay.
I understand. Good
so
Lord.
it's not like they're perfect anyway.
They're also not the original. So, like on the second floor, it's the original hardwoods from 1924. But
Wow.
Down here, it's like maybe 20 years old.
Okay. All right. I understand. That's awesome, man. That's really cool. Jesus. All right, guys. I think when we're talking about stilettos on the floors, it might be time to go.
This party's just started, John. What are you talking about? We just got the good stuff.
I understand. I'm gonna try and swim, like you were saying about the treadmill. Thank God.
Yes.
I'm gonna swim this evening before I do the Outer Limits. Or we're not doing Outer Limits anymore. We're doing the Liberty Valance tonight.
Yeah.
So that's coming up in about 4 hours. So I got enough time to hit the pool and swim a little bit before I
tell everybody I said hello from
absolutely no
Likewise.
definitely. Hey, and there's 2 issues out now of the House of Lost Horizons, a Sarah Jewell mystery. Really, if you like drawing room mysteries, like Agatha Christie, like Peter Wimsey and Father Brown and the like and stuff, this is an American story, but you'll really enjoy it. And congratulations, Chris. It's another great book.
Thanks,
so that's awesome. And Allison, again, well done on Wynonna Earp. Happy to give you the victory lap on that. And looking forward to see whatever projects are next for you. And as always, guys, I miss you. I'm glad. I'm so glad Allison's like, hey, let's talk. And I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's do it. So no, it's great seeing you. And I hope soon, within a year or so, we'll see each other at con real soon. And or maybe I'll, maybe I'll be able to plan a Portland trip or whatever and see you guys.
Or both.
Or
both.
both.
Totally. Anytime. We'd love to see you.
Thank you. And seriously, and thanks for listening to my bullshit, Allison. That's very nice.
I love listening to you. I think you're fantastic. I've told you that before though. So
mutual admiration for both of you. You know that. So everybody, thanks for the questions. Join us in about 4 hours for the Man Who Shot Liberty Valance podcast. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Parker, Hardman, Ian Brill, William Meyer, and myself talking about a John Ford classic that maybe a generation has forgotten about. It's on Tubi, by the way, and you've got more than enough time to watch it now. Before, if you can handle commercials, I know we're in a different world now, but it is streaming for free on Tubi, so you might want to watch there. Until then, everybody stay safe.